Hey everybody, Tiffany here. I'm coming to you tonight from Budapest. If you've been following along on Instagram or on my personal Facebook page, you know that I've been traveling for the last couple of weeks with students all over Northern Europe. Well, yesterday they flew home from Paris and I flew to Budapest. I'd never been here before, hadn't done a whole lot of research, didn't really know anything about it. This is just part of my grand adventure for this summer. So yesterday on Instagram, I actually shared some photos of my apartment and of my neighborhood. I'm very pleased with my apartment. It was pretty much what I expected. Now I do have to say it does not have an elevator and it does not have air conditioning, but I'm only here for 6 nights and it is right in the middle of everything. I am essentially one street over from the infamous Váci Street. So, you know, you sacrifice some things in order to be able to stay in budget. And this time I sacrificed air conditioning and having to climb up 63 steps to my apartment. You know, not that I'm counting or anything like that. You all know me better than that, right? So I thought I would tell you a couple of, I don't know, kind of funny stories that have happened in the last 36 hours. I mean, I haven't been here hardly any time at all, and already I have some things to tell you. I know that I'm supposed to be this really savvy traveler and I'm supposed to have all of my act together and everything planned, but these stories will probably reveal to you the actual truth about my life. So yesterday, when I flew from Paris to Budapest, I wasn't terribly worried about the flight itself because I can figure out most things French, especially if they're written. And, you know, if I really concentrate, I can get the gist, I think, of most conversations. And then I also knew that at the airport, you know, a lot of the announcements and that kind of thing would be made in English. When I loaded the plane, I was happy to see that the announcements on the plane were planned to be made in both French, Spanish, and English. So I felt really good about that. I was in the very last row of the airplane in the aisle seat, which is not a place I would ever recommend anyone sit because it's right next to the galley where they prepare the little snacks that they bring you, and it's right next to the restrooms, you know, so shoot me now. But anyway, I got a really great deal on that flight and I just had to take what they had. One of the things I love about traveling in Europe is that if you're going from country to country, the train tickets are generally very inexpensive, but flights are crazy cheap too. My flight from Paris to Budapest was right at $100, and that included a $25 fee in order to be able to check a bag. So, I mean, I felt really good about that price. I don't know anywhere in the US that I could fly for $100, you know, just off the top of my head. Of course, if somebody does know, please let me know. I might want to go there. Well, anyway, so we were on a pretty small plane. There were about 120 people, 120 passengers or so, and when we got ready to land in Budapest, we experienced some turbulence. Now, I'm never a fan of turbulence, but we had a comedian for a pilot. He got on the intercom and he said first in French and then in Spanish and then in English that he would really appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen, if we would stop shaking the plane. He was trying to land it. And of course everybody laughed, you know, and it kind of broke the tension. But then I was a little worried he was too much of a comedian and not really concentrating on his job. But, you know, it all worked out. I don't have to be in charge of everything. I just, you know, need to let it go. Well, anyway, I did appreciate his sense of humor, at least. When we landed, we did something I've only done once or twice in all the years that I've been flying. We actually had to descend from the airplane via a set of steps. There was no sky bridge for us to use. And so I exited out the tail of the plane because that's where I was sitting, and then other people exited out the front. And we had to like walk across the tarmac with our carry-on bags to this little tram that the airline, or I guess the terminal, had sent to us. I mean, it was standing there empty, motor running with the doors wide open, so it was pretty obvious where you had to go. So I got on the tram and it filled up, with the other 120 passengers or so. And we drove a very short distance to the terminal where, again, the doors opened and it was obvious this is what we were supposed to do. So I kind of followed the crowd, I wasn't really sure what to expect. Remember, I don't speak any Hungarian. And I was glad to see that in the airport, at least, the signs were all first in Hungarian and then in English. So that was, reassuring. I found the carousel where our bags were going to be coming from the plane, and I retrieved my bag, no problem. As I was going there, I noticed that there was an older man using an ATM. And so I thought, oh, this is a great idea. I'll go ahead and use the ATM while I'm here because I didn't have any of the Hungarian currency. Now, Hungarian currency is called forints, and it is HOF if you're looking at the currency exchange list of different currencies around the world. And I had checked like the Hungarian to US dollar amount, the exchange rate, and it's basically been running about $1 US equaling 274 Hungarian forints. Now, that is not easy math to do in your head. So just kind of keep that in mind. So I get my bags, I wait off to the side while the older man, finishes up his transaction because I want to creep him out, And then it's my turn to go up and use the ATM. And thankfully there was an option to use it in English. Not a problem, I'm going through all, I do my little password and, I choose that I want forints, and then it has like options listed, so like at home it'll say $20, $40, $100, $160. It has like these preset options. Well, this ATM at the airport had preset options too, but they were all in forints. And I didn't realize this at the time, but you know how with US dollars we do like say for $500 it would be 500 dot or decimal point 00. Or if you were going to do $1,000 it would be 1 comma 000 dot 00. That's how we punctuate our money, how we show the decimal points and that kind of thing. Oh, they don't do it that way in Hungary. Just FYI, for anyone, who might be planning a trip here, they don't do it that way. So I thought that I chose $100. And the machine spits out like this wad of cash that is ridiculous. I mean, like I folded it over and it almost didn't fit in my wallet. And I thought to myself, that's an awful lot of money, but maybe I just got a lot of small bills. I don't know what the settings are for the ATM machines in Budapest. So, I'm kind of in a rush. I'm ready to get to my apartment. So I just kind of stuff it in my bag. I put my card and my receipt away. The receipt says nothing. It's all in Hungarian. So, who knows? And I go out to the taxi stand. Pretty simple because painted on the floor of the airport are arrows, are lines to follow, literally by color, taking you where you want to go. So if you want to go to the metro, you follow the line that is a certain color that says metro. If you want to go to a taxi, then you follow the line that says, taxi and its color. And I couldn't tell you what the colors are right now, but I found the color coordination and the Hungarian plus the English signage very helpful. So I walk out and there is a taxi stand, and I usually do spring for a taxi from the airport in whatever city I'm visiting, just because I've got a lot of luggage, I don't know where I'm going, etc. And I had been told by the person at Airbnb that the taxi would probably cost me around 30 euro. And then that's not great, but it's not unusual. It's about what I've paid in other places, Madrid, Paris, whatever. So I get in line, and the girl working the counter is not especially friendly, but I'm not letting that dampen my spirits, I tell her that I want to go to this address. I show her the address on my phone, and I ask her to ballpark the price for me because I've learned you don't get in a taxi without some kind of an agreement about the price ahead of time. And, she tells me she estimates it to be about 6,400 forints. And I'm like, okay, what is that in money? I understand, and she says, or about 24 or 25 euros. And I'm like, I can handle that. That seems reasonable. And, I'm given a receipt, and my guy drives up with his number on his taxi, and he's very nice. He puts my luggage in the trunk. He opens the door for me. It's totally normal. And as we're driving into town, I have to work my courage up a little bit. I want to ask him questions, but I don't know if he speaks much English. He didn't say a whole lot to me when he took my bags. And so finally, I worked my courage up, and I asked him if he spoke English, and he answered the way all Europeans answer, a little. And then come to find out, he actually spoke very good English. I was quite impressed. And, he tells me a little bit about the city. He points out some things along the way. He asks me why I'm there, whether I'm here on business or as a tourist. He tells me that I'm in a good neighborhood, that I'll like it for being a tourist, and talks a little bit about architecture, and I get most of it, and it was really nice. He was a nice guy. So he takes me to my apartment, and he points out the building, which door is mine, and I thank him, and I actually, it was something like 6,600 forints, and then I rounded up to 7,000 forints, which sounds really impressive. It was like a $2 tip. I mean, it wasn't much at all. And, he's on his way, and so here I am facing this building. Well, my Airbnb host, her name is Heidi, or at least that's her name on Airbnb. Who knows what it is in real life? Well, there are all of these buttons in the front of the building, because it has like not a doorman, but like an intercom system where you have to be buzzed in, and none of them say Heidi, because you just don't do that. It either has like the address, or it has like a number system, or it's written in Hungarian. I have no idea what that means. So I'm like, what do I do here? I decide that I'm just going to give her a call, because we had been communicating via email, and I call her, and she answers right away, which is always reassuring. You always have that little bit of panic with an Airbnb, like that maybe it's not a real person or a real place and you've been scammed, but that was not the case. And so I spoke with her, and she tells me that she is still at work, but that she has a friend of hers who's going to meet me at 5:15. And I was a little aggravated by that, I have to be honest. I had told her that I would land at 3:45 and that I expected to be at the apartment by 5 o'clock. And, she arbitrarily chose to have somebody meet me at 5:15. I know I don't need to be high maintenance like that, but I was just a little bit put off. I thought, well, it's not her who's meeting me. She decided a different time. I was early. It was about 4:45 at that point. And so that meant I had 30 minutes to wait. And it's kind of hard to look cool when you've been flying all day and you've had a crazy morning with students, and you're in a country where you don't know where you're supposed to be, and you're leaning up against a wall and your back hurts, But I tried to make the most of it. I took some pictures. I did a picture of my bag and my shoes, one of those where I stand photos. And I took a couple of pictures of the street, and I turned on my data, and I read a couple of emails, even though I probably shouldn't have. My phone bill's going to be ridiculous when I get home. And finally it was, and I met the homeless man who lives on my street. Yeah, that was really fun. And then it's 5:15, and I'm like, okay, nobody's here. She didn't tell me the guy's name. I'm starting to feel a little panicky, and I'm like, okay, just take a breath. If I haven't heard from anybody by 5:30, I'll call her back. Don't spend the $1 a minute that it takes to call her to say, it's 5:16, he's not here. That's not helpful. Don't be quite so high maintenance. This is like how I'm lecturing myself, And sure enough, about 5:20, the door opened, and I guess her friend lives in the apartment building, for all I know. But anyway, I don't know his name. He didn't introduce himself in the midst of all of it, but he was surprised to only see me. I had made the reservation for 2 because I knew that one of my friends would be joining me later in the week, and I didn't want there to be any question about that. And he was like, there's supposed to be 2 of you. And I was like, no, my friend is coming later. But it was reassuring, at least, that he knew about the reservation. And he offers to help me with my bags. And y'all who listen to the podcast know that I sort of pride myself on being able to do things by myself, but I'm also not a fool. So I said, of course, please help me with my bags. That would be lovely. And boy, was I glad that I did, because We turned the corner and there were not one, but two flights of a long, winding staircase up to the second floor. 63 steps, actually. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get my luggage back down by myself, if I'm being totally honest. So that I don't know that I could have gotten it all up there by myself. That's harder than coming down the stairs even. So we get up here, and he shows me the apartment. He talks about the Wi-Fi. He, gives me the grand tour. And within 10 minutes, he's gone. And it's at that moment I'm like, oh my God, I'm really here in Budapest. I am so crazy. I don't know anything about this city where I am. And so, I put my things in the bedroom, I go to the bathroom, and I sit down and I'm like, maybe I need to try to figure out this money thing, especially since I already had to pay the taxi driver. And so I pull this wad of cash out. Y'all, I didn't get $100 out in foreigns. Oh no, not me. I got $1,000 in foreigns. I am insane. I got 10 times the amount that I needed. Okay, so I'm not going to spend $1,000 in a week. That's not how I roll. When I travel, I'm on a budget. And so $1,000 is like for 3 weeks, maybe even 4 if I'm being really careful with my money. And that's, that pays for feeding myself, going to museums, entrance fees, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so finally I was just like, okay, it's done. It's done. You're just going to have to, when Lori gets here at the end of the week, I'm just going to sell some to her. And then the rest of it, I guess I'll have to go back to a money change place and sell it back. I mean, I'll take a little bit of a hit. It's going to cost me some money to do this, but I can't spend foreigns anywhere else except in Budapest, and I'm only here for 6 nights. I mean, what was I thinking? I maintain I must have been so jet lagged or something, so tired from having those 2 weeks with kids and averaging about 4 hours of sleep a night. That's my story. That's what I'm going with. But you would think that I would have been smarter about that I would have known more about the money. So, that's a lesson to everybody who's considering going somewhere else. Instead of being in a hurry, instead of just like assuming that I knew what I was doing, I probably should have been more careful and read the screen more carefully and gone with less money than I thought that I needed. So, yeah, I'll be checking in with you guys and letting you know how selling back all those thousands of foreigns goes at the end of this week. So that figured out, I realized I needed to go out and get a few supplies. I mean, I like to have a couple of things I can eat for breakfast in the apartment. I like to have something to drink. I wanted to get out. I was tired, but I didn't want to stay in my apartment, and I did want to grab some dinner. So I set off. Now, keep in mind, I don't even have a map of Budapest. Not even kidding. I don't even have a map of the city that I'm in. And I do not have hardly any data left on my data plan. So I try not to turn maps on my phone unless it's absolutely necessary, unless I have Wi-Fi. So I just left my apartment and I made a couple of turns and I ended up on the main shopping street in the city. I'm literally one street over from Váci Street, which is the main shopping street in the city for touristy kinds of things. I'm like, well, surely God, I can find something to eat, here. And I had looked, while I was back at the apartment, I had looked for a grocery store and thought I had figured out directions to go to an Aldi. I don't know if y'all have those in your city, but we actually have one in my hometown in Kentucky. And I was like, okay, I know Aldi. I know their products. I know kind of how the grocery store is set up. I know that it's good quality. I'll go there. Well, I went on this like ridiculous kind of excursion over hill and mountain and vale and never found Aldi, but I did find another little grocery store and went in and bought a few things, and but I didn't bring a sack. I forgot, in Europe you bring your own sacks. You don't they don't give them to you for free. I was able to communicate enough with the cashier that I bought a sack. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I bought a bottle of wine and a big bottle of limonada that I love from Schweppes. And that was so heavy carrying it around town. So hello, note to self, buy one or the other, but not both. And, I got like some nuts and a little pastry for the next morning and some chips and, nothing really. I bought a few pieces of fruit, just something to have in the apartment in case I woke up and I was like starving. So then I was like, what do I want to get to eat? Do I want to go to like a sit-down restaurant, or do I want to just grab something to go? And ultimately I decided I was pretty tired by that point. I mean, it was probably 8 or 8:30 at night by then, and I had been going since 6 o'clock that morning, and so I was ready for a break. And I'm looking around, and there is a Greek place just a few doors down from the grocery store. And, I totally probably say this wrong, but it's the sandwiches, Gyros. Eros is the way I think they say it in Greece. But anyway, I decided I would get one of those. And I go in, and of course, I don't speak Hungarian, hello. And I can see on the menu, and the guy's like talking to me, and it's all blah, 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 blah. And I looked at him, and kind of pitiful, and I was like, so sorry, do you speak English? Which is like going to be my tag phrase for the next 6 weeks, apparently. And he said, a little, which meant, basically he speaks better English than I do almost anything. And I told him that I wanted one of the Eros in a pita, and he's like, you want it spicy? You want everything on it? And I thought, I'm in Budapest, why the hell not? And so I said, yes, everything. And so he starts wrapping it up, and he tells me that it's 750 florins, which is like $3. And it was huge. I mean, like, if I had carried it, my hands would have been open like this. And so he starts it, and then somebody needs him for something, and another guy finishes it up. Maybe his son, maybe his coworker, who knows? They kind of looked alike. And he's going to hand it to me open like this with a little wrapper around it. And I was like, no, a sack. I need this. I'm taking it home. I need this in a sack. And so he wrapped it up and put it in a little styrofoam container. They have styrofoam here. And he put it in a bag so that I could take it home. And as I left, both he and the guy that started waiting on me were like, thank you, lady. Have a nice evening, lady. I hope you like it, lady. And I realized, like, when we call somebody lady in the U.S., we're not being nice. We're being like, hey, lady. Like, it's kind of like another word for broad or whatever. But for them, it's like the equivalent of ma'am, right? And so I realized that just kind of a little character of the language, and I thought that was pretty sweet. I'm like, I can handle it if they just call me lady. That's okay. So I headed back home, and let me tell you, that Ero was like the best thing I've had to eat in months. It was so good. It was everything I could do not to go back there tonight and get another one. But I decided that would be a little strange. So this morning, I slept like 9 hours in a row. Can you believe it? I hadn't had more than 4 hours of sleep in weeks. So 9 hours in a row, I was so stiff. I didn't know how to act when I got up this morning, but I felt really good. And I took it easy. I had a slow morning. I did some laundry. I hung around the apartment. I tried to catch up on some email kinds of things. And then after lunch, I headed out. I just kind of snacked here at the apartment. Then after lunch, I headed out into the city. And again, I don't have a map. I don't know where anything is. But I knew that I wanted to buy a transportation card. And so I started out walking on the one street that I know, the famous street that's next to the street where I live. And as I get to the main area, there's like a little tourist information booth. And they are giving some tourists the hard sell about some sort of a Budapest card, which the city cards are almost never a good value. I mean, just kind of as a word of warning, don't buy the city cards wherever you go. You almost always don't get your money back on them in the savings. But anyway, And so I asked one of the workers there where I can buy, transportation tickets, and he's sort of vague. He's like, turn left, walk about 5 minutes, you'll be in a big square, you'll see it. See what? Is it like a person that wears a sign that says I sell tickets? Is it a machine? Do I go inside? Do I go underground? He's not clear. And so I start asking him questions. I'm like, is it a kiosk? He doesn't know that word. I'm like, is it indoors or outdoors? He says indoors. And I said, is it above ground or underground? And he does not know what I'm talking about. He says, you can't miss it. There are buses, there are trams, there are metro. You can't miss it. It's all together. And I thought, oh, you don't know me, but okay. And so I turned, and how long is 5 minutes? I mean, I have short legs. And I'm a middle-aged woman. It's my 5 minutes, your 5 minutes. He was like 21 and, 6, 7. What is his 5 minutes? So I just start walking. And I'm kind of looking at people and places, but I'm trying to exude that sort of, I know what I'm doing. I'm not a victim mentality that you always want to make sure that, you're carrying around with you when you're in a new place by yourself. And people are kind of interested in what I'm doing, but nobody, bothered me or anything like that. And I walk and walk and walk and walk. I forgot to check how many minutes, because I was too excited about where I was. And finally, I get to what appears to be potentially a big square, but it's not a square. It's more of kind of an oval. And I notice that there is a tram, I can see a bus, and I can see a metro entrance. And I thought, I bet this is it, because that's the first time that I had seen all three of them together. And so I go down into the metro station. I'm kind of looking around. Keep in mind, everything is in Hungarian. I'm kind of looking around, and finally I see a sign on the far wall. I trek over there, and I notice that it has it in Hungarian, and then something else, maybe Hungarian-ish, a dialect perhaps, and then it has it in English. And it basically is a map with a legend of where you can buy tickets. These purple machines sell tickets for the transportation options. And according to the legend, the ticket machine is right behind me. So I look around slowly, and sure enough, literally right behind me, I mean several feet away, but literally right behind where I was standing, there were these ticket machines. And so I go to the ticket machine, and they have different options. You can buy like 10 tickets at a time. You can buy a single ticket. You can buy, a pack of 20 maybe. You can buy a 3-day pass, a 7-day pass, a monthly pass. You can buy other things if you are a Hungarian citizen, which, of course I'm not. So I look at my options, and it appears that the 3-day pass is the best option for me. And so I buy the 3-day pass. I think it was maybe $10. I mean, I haven't done the conversion just yet. I think it was like $10. And I step back, I'm feeling really proud of myself, and I'm taking a picture of the ticket machine, and here comes this dude, this Hungarian dude, and he's looking at me like, you have lost your ever-loving mind. Obviously, you're such a tourist. And I'm just like, sorry. I wasn't even embarrassed to speak English at that point because, my cover was blown. But the thing I'm so excited about is this 3-day pass is good for all of their modes of transportation. I can use the same ticket for the bus, the tram, or the metro. So far, I've only tried it on the tram, but you never know what might happen tomorrow. Well, then I'm itching to use this. I've got this little ticket burning a hole in my pocket, and I want to use it. So the first thing I do is hop on a tram, and I hop on the number 49 tram because I had seen something somewhere about the number 49, and it just felt right, because that's apparently how I roll in a new city. I just wing it. And sure enough, I'm riding the tram down the street, and I'm like, oh, that's my neighborhood. Oh my gosh, I recognize that. And then I thought, maybe I should write that down. Maybe I should write down the name of my neighborhood. But really all I did was I took a picture of the sign so that I would recall what it was, because, I'm going to have to get back at some point. And I do have the neighborhood, I do have the address of my apartment saved in my phone, but not like the neighborhood name. And, I'd have to use my data to pull up a map to try to get back. So I thought that was pretty smart. And I'm looking at my Kindle app on my iPhone because that doesn't use data. And I noticed that the Castle District, it says you take either the number 19 or the number 41 tram up to it. So I was like, dang it, I'm on 49. What am I going to do here? And I just happened to see the legend, like on the side of the tram car on the inside, that said which stops have like different buses that show up. They have different trams that show up. And so sure enough, there was a stop coming up that both 19 and 41 would intersect. And so I get off on that one and I get on one of those. But keep in mind, I don't know which direction. I don't know which way I'm supposed to be riding it. I just know it's that number. Y'all, I'm not going to keep you forever, but I got so lost. I got so incredibly lost. I mean, I knew where the river was because I could see it. And I knew where Parliament was because I could see it on the other side of the river. But I got nowhere close to the Castle District where I wanted to go. I'm going to have to do some research tonight and like map out my transportation options before I try to go again tomorrow, because like I saw things tonight and I took pictures of stuff. I couldn't tell you what it is because it's all in Hungarian. So yes, my first 36 hours in Budapest, I have screwed up my ATM transaction because I wasn't paying attention to the lack of comma and decimal. And I've gotten incredibly lost on the tram system. But the good news is that I did buy my Metro card. I did make it to the grocery, and I did find my way home because, as you can see, I am in my apartment right now. So after I got back to my neighborhood, I walked around a little bit. I ended up having a lovely dinner at a Greek place. I'm on a Greek kick right now for some reason. At a Greek place called Dionysus Taverna. It had gotten some good reviews online, and I recognized the name. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, serendipity, this is where I'm going. My little waiter was so sweet. He brought me an appetizer and a dessert, even though I didn't order it. And he didn't charge me for it. So maybe I reminded him of his mother or something. I don't know. And all of them who worked there immediately started speaking to me in either Hungarian or Greek. I couldn't tell you which one, but they all also spoke English very well too. So that was a nice experience. And, after that, I stopped in a shop and bought a converter for my laptop plug. I didn't have a 3-pronged converter and I needed one. I bought a converter for that, and then I walked myself back up to my apartment. For the rest of the evening, I am going to watch a little bit of House of Cards. I haven't watched television in 2 weeks, so I'm excited about that. And I am going to map out my plan for tomorrow so that hopefully I spend less time getting lost and more time actually seeing things. That's kind of the goal. Oh, I did manage also to buy all of my train tickets from city to city this morning. So I did accomplish that too. I mean, I guess I got a few things done on my very first day in Budapest. I just didn't see as much as I wanted to see. So, that's life. Well, I didn't mean to talk for so long. I hope some of you all found this interesting, and that, if you like to travel like I do, or even, like to hear about traveling, that this was something that you thought was fun. And I will check back in with you all in another city. Okay, see you later. I hope you're being crafty. I'm not getting much done, but I'll get there eventually. Okay, bye.